So,
All right, just recording here. Right, over to you, Kenny. We got here.
all right. So, this platform here that you see, this is EZLYNX, right?
Yep.
Where AG is system, and basically this allows us to basically just like manage our customers, manage our agents, see exactly who belongs to who. And EZLYNX not only is an agency management system, it also works as a CRM where we can track leads if agents want to, pursue certain customers, if they want to exit certain customers or prospects. And it also works as a comparative rater, right? So what you're gonna see here is literally the main page. It gives you a whole bunch of cool information like policy downloads. One
thing went screwy with a screen share. You wanna?
Oh, let's see.
Computer. Yeah, just reshare. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, cool.
So one thing that you're gonna notice is that policy downloads, right? So as we mentioned yesterday, EZLYNX, they're one of their big capabilities is that they're able to sync with majority of our carriers, right? So they pull policy data every single day, and that data syncs into EZLYNX, right? So for example, if you wanted to see if a policy is canceling, you'll have the ability to see which policy is in cancellation status or which policy actually canceled, right? So now that
automatically shows you this info for each of the franchisees, the book of business. So for example, let's say I buy a franchise, I sell it to my brother. He calls the insurance carrier to cancel or calls you, and then it automatically updates, or you have to actually type it in here, they've canceled. What do you mean the cancellations? Is it automatically done?
So what happens is, let's say if the insured calls the carrier directly, right? And they cancel the policy with the carrier directly. The carrier is going to notify us,
okay,
and let us was just canceled. Or let's say if the insured missed the payment and now their policy is in pending cancellation. Now that carrier, let's say Nationwide, for example, Nationwide is going to send us through EZLYNX, and now we're able to see exactly which policy is in pending cancellation status. So now we can reach out to the agent if the agent isn't looking at it already, saying, "Hey, look, make sure you
yeah." So you see it from the corporate point of view, and the franchise also should get notified if their customer canceled directly with the carrier.
Right.
Follow up. So, and you can follow up with the friend. So it's a two-way thing. So you guys have like a master account, and you can see every single franchisee's accounts details.
Exactly. So in terms of that master account, we can see every other franchisee's account. In terms of the franchisee account, they can only see what's within their agency.
Got it.
So
perfect.
It gives that privacy to other agents, and
So EZLYNX, is that pretty much the industry standard for, I guess, franchises and or licensing models in this insurance industry? I guess are they the leader in the space, or is there another competitor that?
So EZLYNX is the absolute best at what they do in terms of on the independent, because they're bridge all carriers all under one spot, right?
All right. So you mentioned most of the 26 carriers that you guys have. Do all of them sync with EZLYNX, or most of, like 90%?
About like 95% of them, right? So one of the biggest carriers that doesn't sync with them as of yet is Liberty Mutual, and that's because we don't have that direct access to Liberty Mutual. So once we do get that direct access, that's going to be March, April, then we'll be able to access their APIs and get those downloads directly into EZLYNX.
Got it. Okay, so just Liberty Mutual is So then how do you then compare? So you use EZLYNX comparative rater, and then you have to manually type in for Liberty Mutual, and then you can compare everything. So it's not a complete because Liberty Mutual is a top 10, top 5 for you guys, right? In terms of policies written.
So that's only at the moment. Again, around I want to say March or April,
Okay.
we should have those API codes where it syncs directly into EZLYNX.
Okay.
And
so
then
is it just is this because you recently signed them as a carrier and there's a process that is required before you get the API? Why is it, another 3-4 months away or 4-5 months away?
all right, so we don't have direct access to Liberty Mutual, right? We have to go through a company called Futurity First, and Futurity First has those capabilities of using those APIs, right? So right now, our agreement with Liberty Mutual is, hey, look, let's, get our foot in the door, show exactly what we're capable of, and then they'll make that decision on whether it'll give us that capability
Got
of.
it. So in other words, we're going through a third party initially, and once we bring up our numbers, they'll consider giving us direct access.
Right. So they already want to give us direct access. We have the okay. So it takes a few months to actually give us that capability.
Okay.
And that's March, April.
Okay, so they have given us the okay. Okay, got it. It just takes a few months. Okay, got it. Perfect. So whenever when I did my screenshot, with my car insurance, home insurance, you had to you typed in the info into EZLYNX. It spits out. Does it spit out or show me? Can you just demo? Like my case, like how you actually. That would be interesting. Like if you can go back to the email that I sent you a while back. I'm just curious exactly the process that you go through to come up with the quote that you did. And then obviously you have to do it separately for Liberty Mutual.
Right. So what I will do is I'll run a quick quote on myself, right? So this page right here, this is your personalized applicant page, right? And basically what you want to do is you just want to create the account so that insured is saved in the system.
So why are you putting your info if I'm the potential client, you would put my info, no?
Right. So so just for quoting purposes, I'm gonna run a quote on myself.
Okay.
And I'm prospect. Okay.
Okay. So for quoting purposes, you always use your own name, is it? Okay.
No, this is just for the example. I'm just gonna use
This is just for today's demo. Okay.
Exactly. So EZLYNX just want the basic information, right? On the name insured, right? So let's say if the name insured is married, then we can change the marital status to married, and then there'll be a co-applicant because anyone who's married has to be a second name insured on the policy. So if we keep going through.
So everything in orange is a must, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
That information is needed, right? So like you're gonna see a field that says DL number, that stands for driver's license number, right? It's not required to like get that general quote, but it will be required to pull reports.
Sure. But
right?
initially we want to pull report. Sorry, we want to get a quote, so it's not required for quotes.
For the driver's license number, yes, it is.
It is required for quotes. Okay.
Right.
But was it highlighted in orange before, or I didn't see it? So yeah, I don't see the orange. I'm assuming the orange means that you must include that. I mean, what this is a mandatory field or not?
Right. So anything highlighted in orange is mandatory.
Okay.
Right. That driver's.
Yeah, DL is not mandatory.
It's not mandatory to get that general information, right? It's only mandatory when you need the actual reports. So let's say if I get a general quote and it comes up to about $1,200 every 6 months, right? That doesn't account for accidents. That doesn't account for violations and tickets.
Yep.
Right. And then that's when you have to go into the carrier and actually run those reports. Okay, so like EZLYNX, like any kind of comparative rater, it never runs the reports right there on the spot. You always have to go inside that carrier directly to actually pull those actual reports.
You have to get into the actual carrier. So, all right. So you're saying that the initial comparative rater just gives very rough info.
Exactly, right? So look, think about it like this, right? If even for example with Goosehead, right? Goosehead has about what seven to eight auto carriers. If you put your driver's license number and you order reports, you order the MVR for every single carrier. MVRs
What does
comes with
MPI stand for?
a motor vehicle report.
Okay.
When you order that MVR, ordering that motor vehicle report comes with a fee of about $7-8. So now that means you're gonna order that MVR report for every single carrier and pay that fee 6-7 times. Why? If you're only gonna buy with one carrier, right? And that's why it's never ideal to have.
Oh, okay. So every single carrier charges for a full proper quote $7 or $8.
Or that motor vehicle report, right? So
Well, what do you mean? Every single carrier motor vehicle report, knowing like the history of their accidents and everything.
whenever a carrier needs to pull information out of the DMV, right? Your motor vehicle reports come from DMV, right? And that pulls violations and ticket, violations, suspension, right?
Okay.
Whenever the carrier needs to put that information, they get charged. So they charge the agent,
Got it.
right?
So,
That's why it's ideal to go through the carrier to run those reports instead of doing it from your comparative rater.
But going directly to the carrier, you still are going to incur that charge, right? $7-8.
Right.
But the comparative rater, you don't want the comparative rater to automatically go through and get the MVR for everyone. Otherwise, it'll cost you an arm and a leg, right? It'll cost you like if you've got 80 carriers, then it'll be $80 times $8. It'll be stupid, right? Just to spend that money. So
right.
So regardless, so it's really you are incurring a small cost each time you quote someone. Like, yeah. So explain to me the process. So you use, yeah. Just explain to me the process. Now that I understand that, do you just look for a quote for the top 5? Like, yeah, I know most of the time you sell, the top 5, right, or whatever. Do you go through the comparative rater without the MVR and to just spit out some general info? And then because you're as a sales agent, roughly what's hot at the moment or what's best for this particular person. And these are probably the top 5 or 10 carries where you need a more detailed quote and where you're happy to pay the $7-8 for those 10. And how does it work? Can you kind of follow up from what you explained?
Yeah. So once you run the quote all the way through, and EZLYNX spits out, let's say, about 5 or 6 different auto quotes, right? What's gonna happen is you're gonna pick the quote with the best price, right? Essentially, that's what you want to do. If the insured is favoring a certain company that we have access to, then of course I'm gonna try to give them the option to go with who they want. But if I find a carrier that's better, I'm always gonna present it to, right, in terms of premium. So now once you do, and it spits out that rate, there's a button on EZLYNX where you could go directly into the carrier, right? And now you can go directly into the quote because all the information is already inputted in that carrier. So now, once you get there, you're going to fine tune the information because not everything is going to be exact. Not every carrier is the same as another. So Nationwide wouldn't be the same as Travelers, or Travelers wouldn't be the same as Mercury. So there's certain details, small details that you have to make sure that's included. And once that's done, now you're ordering the reports, right? And once you order the reports, you can order the reports two-way. You can order a clue, and that looks for accidents, and accidents are in charge. There's no fee for looking for accidents. And if the price is still good, then you move forward and order your motor vehicle report, your MVR. Once you order your MVR, if the price is still good, then you sell the policy. If it's not, then you have to go to a different carrier and see if it makes sense. And now you're going down the line of carriers and seeing if there's anything that you can do on that end. But usually, if the premium isn't good from that general quote, then it's probably not going to be competitive at all. Right? So that's the process in terms of a quick overview on how you would go through a quote by inputting the information through EZLYNX.
Yeah, I'm not 100% following, because my basic understanding is you type in some info into EZLYNX, and then you said it spits out 5 or 6 options. Now, shouldn't it spit out 26 or 25 minus Liberty Mutual and whichever one else that's synced up? And then you look at that and you go, these are the top 5 that I want to delve into. And then you go into each of the carriers or have a look at the accidents, if there's which doesn't cost you anything. If it's still a decent quote without, factoring in the accidents, then you order the MVR, and then, but you still don't know the exact price unless you compare at least 3 MVRs or the final quotes. Or I'm just a bit confused how I know, I know I'm going to incur an $8 fee if I'm going to try to get the final price. How does your system actually give a real quote and compares it with, maybe not all 26, because that'll cost a lot of money, but at least the top 3 to 5? Does that make sense? Like, as a consumer, I'm confused still. Are you really giving me a quote based on the rough top 5, and you're incurring an $8 fee for each of the 5, or what?
Okay, so as a prospect, right, we're not going to present the price that the EZLYNX trader brings back, right? Because it's not the exact price, right? You still have to run reports. Nothing is exact until you run reports, right? So if the reports are ran and there's accidents on his record, if there's tickets or violations that the prospect didn't include in the conversation, now price increases.
Yeah.
Right. If insurance is also based off of consumer reports. So if their consumer reports doesn't fall either to the average consumer report, then the premium increases as well. So there's a lot of variables that fall into insurance. Okay. It's not. So it's gonna be,
when you say consumer report, can you MVI kind of get, what do you mean exactly by the consumer report?
All right, so a consumer report, think of consumer report as credit.
Okay,
right?
good. Okay, got it. So it takes a look at your credit. Does it ding your credit actually to see if your credit's good or bad?
So it's not a hard hit.
Not
basically,
a hard hit.
Right. So basically how it works is it looks at just your past history of time or and then it of 1 to 20, right? And that ranges between just a good or bad or
okay.
fair.
So it gives a rough report. All right. So I really want to understand this process, so we can explain it to so I can understand it a little bit better. So easy. So when you fill out the info, maybe walk me through it. I mean, how long does it normally take? 10 minutes, 15 minutes to come up?
I'll show you right now.
Okay.
I'll show you the opportunity. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. So you maybe use me as the example, or the info I gave you, or whatever.
I'm gonna use myself because
use yourself. All right. Yeah.
I want to give you a quick example, and I want to be able to breeze through it within about 5
Yeah.
with
So are you normally doing this on the phone with the client at this point?
it's all optional. It depending on how the conversation goes. You know, if you have a client who's like a good speaker and they're willing to, like, you know, talk about, you know, anything and everything, then you can have it
Yeah, you
over the
can
phone.
get all that info in the 5 or 10
Right.
minutes. If
But
not,
the
you get them to email you.
is to, you know, tell them, hey, look, give me about 5 to 10 minutes. Let me run these to all of the carriers that we have, and then I can give you a call back with the best price. And then we go through the options, right? So there's not a straightforward way how to go about it. It's all up to the producer who's writing the business, and that's how it works, you know.
But is your understanding Goosehead's comparative rater, is that once again a real number that they're spitting out? Because the way that they presented it, I mean, I could show you. They showed me on a PowerPoint presentation.
Give me one. Let me just go.
Let me just find the Goosehead presentation. With EZLYNX, can you run sales reports of every single agent?
Sales report? Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
So this is how it looks with EZLYNX when you're running through a comparative rater, right? Through EZLYNX comparative rater, right? So they give you options. Travelers, you have two different options. If you was to give all of the policy discounts, that means multi-policy discounts. That means I have continuous insurance, so I get that better rating. If I increase the deductibles on the collision and comprehensive, I can possibly get the quote at 1722, right? And that's assuming that I don't have any incidents at all, right? And then if you was to do a bare bones auto quote with no discounts applied, then I would get that same traveler's quote at 2077 every 6 months. Now let's compare it to Nationwide. Nationwide right now, they're shying away from borough business, especially the fact that I'm in Brooklyn. Nobody wants to.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't consider these. So this is okay. Now, what info did you fill out again? Can you just quickly go back roughly what basic info did you fill out to get this?
Okay.
So you filled out address. Sorry, what was the lead info that you put in? So you put what did you put?
Okay, first policy info.
Policy info, First Except. What is First Except? Is this your current company?
So First Except is if I know somebody has current insurance and they have it for at least 6 months, right? Or let's call it a year, at least a year of prior insurance. This is our preset that we can put on quickly, and it shows just a prior carrier with at least 1 year of insurance, and their bodily injury limits is 2550, right? And
is that an assumption, or you asked the client and they gave you the 20? Is that a template?
That's a template.
So
and
that client may not have 2550. You adjust that later.
Right, but that's me asking the insured first, right? So let's say if the insured tells me they have 100-300, right, full coverage.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
gonna that
Okay,
template.
so you just put whatever they tell you. Okay.
Okay, so now once we move forward, some of these carriers ask specific questions, right? So Nationwide wants to know, does the insured want paperless, right? EZLYNX wants to know, does the agent want the applicant email to bridge to all carrier sites? Right now, that's fine because I didn't put an email address in there. Travelers.
What does that mean? Does the agent want the applicant email to bridge to all carrier sites?
It's just having the email address on the EZLYNX profile go into every single carrier.
Most won't care, right? That should be yes, shouldn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't enter a email address here. See, there's no.
Got it.
So for me, in this particular situation, it doesn't matter because it would have done the same thing regardless, right?
Okay.
So travelers, is this quote a part of a book transfer, right? This we're not transferring policy from one carrier to the other. So this is not something that needs to be answered. If I did need to answer it, then I would put no, right?
What? But aren't you already part of first acceptance? Well, what is first acceptance? Is that a carrier?
First acceptance is a carrier, but prior carrier, this right here isn't anything like, important, because even if I was to change it to farmers, it would have still gave the same rate because we're going based off prior bodily injury limits and years of prior carrier. The longer you stay with one carrier, the better your rating is, right? So let's say, for example, you're with Geico for 5 years, right? If I was to quote you with a different carrier, they would look at you as a preferred customer because you stayed with that carrier for a long time.
Yeah.
Right? They're looking at loyalty.
Okay.
Right.
So looking at loyalty, prior limits. So they're trying to come up with a comparative. And if you're so they're pricing on a whole range of factors, like how many years you've been with past carriers, what type of coverage you want, and they will give you slightly better pricing if you've been loyal, right? So there's a lot of factors involved. Okay, got it. Now, what does this mean? Is this quote part of a book transfer? Isn't it part of it? Weren't you part of farmers?
Wait, so to circle back, right? There's not one single variable that accounts for everything. It's a lot of things. So just pinpoint why somebody has a higher price, because even though these carriers are looking at prior liability limits, how long you've been with the carrier for, they're also looking at area, right? They're also looking at age.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors and a lot of, running that quote. Okay. So now to these additional carrier questions, these are just specific questions that these carriers want to know, right? So again, if you go back to Nationwide with paperless, Nationwide wants to know, hey, look, is this customer gonna have is this customer gonna be on a paperless program where they don't receive bills in the mail? They don't receive.
So are you asking the customer these questions, or at what stage are we filling this info out, sort of thing, with the sales process?
So when you're an experienced salesperson, you know to ask these questions within the first, I want to say 5-10 minutes of the conversation, right? Hey, Kian, are you right now, do you have your current policies on paperless, or do you get your
so you ask her that, but what is this quote part of a book transfer? Can you explain what that? I'm still a bit confused about why you're putting no when I thought, is this quote part, isn't it a book transfer? What does a book transfer mean, I guess?
So it's transferring policies from one book to the other.
From one carrier to another?
One book of business to another.
One book of business to another. Right.
So for example, in office, we have a, just for example purposes, we have a $5 million book of business, right? That means that we have $5 million in premium, and that's our book size. It's just taking this policy and moving it over to another book of business.
Okay, this is not critical. That's fine. Okay, moving on. So you fill out some basic information. It has some additional carrier questions, and then what else? And then at what point do you get the quotes that you got, that you explained to me, the 2,000 versus 1,700 versus the 5,000?
So then we have to keep on going because we're only at the beginning.
Okay, got it. You get the policy info.
So this is just the small stuff, right? This is just the small, minute stuff, right? So now we're gonna go over to our driver's tab, right? Right now, just me as a driver, right? Now, imagine if I was married, I would have me as a first name insured. I would have my wife as a second name insured, right? Let's say I have kids. Now I'm gonna list all of my kids.
Yep.
Best way to run these actual quotes is to have the driver's license numbers in there. So when it bridges over to every other carrier, their driver's license numbers pull up into, right? So now when you're in every specific carrier, you don't have to, enter that driver's license number because it's already there and it's in there for all of them. So for quoting purposes, I'm not gonna put my driver's license number in there. I'm just gonna leave it empty. And also what you're gonna notice is that occupation industry is already filled out because I filled it out on the details tab, right? What you're also gonna notice is that we have to put in a defensive driving course if I've taken that defensive driving course, right? And basically it's that 5-hour course training that save money on their policies. If my license was ever suspended within the past 5 years, we would account for that here, right?
So
a lot of
well, you're gonna ask these questions or what? Because this is not something I normally fill out when I fill a survey. So is this where on the phone you're refining this, gathering this info, or what?
Absolutely. You always ask, hey, is your license suspended now? No. Is your license past 5 years? People always say no, and people lie, right? That's
so you can only put whatever they say, but ultimately when you run the MVR or whatever, you'll get that info.
Everything pulls up on its own.
Okay. So where do you select, additional drivers and stuff? And, he says, oh, I've got a son and daughter. Is it down the bottom? You keep on, add driver. Okay, that's fine. So you fill this info out. So I'm just trying to understand again, the sales process. This is why, structure in terms of, okay, currently the way you sell is I go to the website, I fill out the leads info, basic first name, last name, phone number. You call me back and you have a question, you have a conversation. If I'm talkative and I'm willing to give you this info, you're kind of filling it out on the spot, or you're just kind of interviewing me and you're making notes and then going, at what point, because the way I remembered, we just had a quick chat and you just said, screenshot for me what Geico, the info inside when you log in. And that's what I did. I just screenshot everything, sent you everything. But I don't recall you asking me, has my license been ever revoked, or maybe because my driver's license was already inside the Geico policy screenshot, you had enough info to run a proper quote, or
right. So it all goes about the selling style and the type of customers that you're, right? So if you have a customer on the phone, you don't have the opportunity. You wouldn't want to take the customer off the phone and tell them, hey, look, send me a screenshot, right? You would get all the information on the phone, and depending on if they have time, now I can keep you on the phone and run the quote, right? Depending on if you wasn't somebody that, if you wasn't someone that wasn't personable, then it would be even harder to even keep you on the phone longer. Yeah. I would tell you the information, and I'll give you a call right after.
So most times they're okay with screenshotting and getting that info.
It depends on who you're talking to.
So some right? I don't even know how to screenshot, right? So if they then what do you get them to pull out?
If you don't screenshot, hey, look, just tell me what's your address, date of birth, what is your driver's license number? When was the last? So then that's how the conversation.
Then you gather that information verbally,
right?
And do you ask things like, "What are you paying roughly for your current car insurance? How long have you been with them?" You gather that information on the phone. Yeah. Okay, so all right, I don't need to. So you have a method to gather as much info, either via the screenshot or over the phone. Let's just kind of move on a little bit.
It's all different selling styles, so you go
depends on
about
the
it.
individual, how tech savvy, how much info they want to give. So you fill out as much as you can, and then at what point does it spit out the initial figures, I guess?
So we still have a long way to go. So right now, at drivers, we have to enter our vehicles, right? So now we're gonna go to our vehicle tab, right? The absolute best way to enter your vehicles is by doing it by their VIN information, right? And that's just the vehicle information of that vehicle, right? And everybody has a distinct number. If you're able to get that VIN number, then the exact vehicle will pop up, and that will give you a better rating because now you know, right? Right now,
Now you know what you got cut off. Now you know if there's any accidents or whatever, right? If you've got the VIN number.
not accidents. This allows the insurance carrier to know exactly what price they're gonna rate you on based off your vehicle.
Okay. All right.
Right. Right now, I don't have an exact VIN, so even if I did have all of your information in there and I ran the reports, I did everything I had to do, the quote wouldn't be exact because I don't have your exact vehicle.
Yep.
So
you need to eventually get that info, obviously, to get an exact quote.
right, exactly. And like, based off the conversation that I had with you, that's why I asked you just to send me a screenshot of your policy information because everything is on.
Yeah. All right. So you basically try to gather that info. Okay. Move to the next step, roughly.
Oh,
I don't want
so
to get too bogged down into the minutia. I'm sure there's a lot of little nuances. I'm just trying to understand high level, how this works. So you fill this info out.
so once the VIN goes in, your year, make, and model, submodel pops up automatically, right?
Okay.
Then you have your purchase date. The purchase date doesn't really affect the premium of the vehicle. Insurance carriers just want to know roughly what year, what month, day, and year did you purchase the vehicle, right? Once that's in, then you have your passive restraints. So these are your airbags. Do you have airbags on both sides of the car? Do you just have it on the driver's side? Do you have automatic seatbelts?
I don't remember even like when you got. I think I gave you my VIN number. I don't think I filled out, or you asked me this, whether I don't even know if I got airbags on both sides of my. I think I do. I'm not sure.
Depending on the carrier, this usually shows up automatically.
Okay.
If not, usually most of all vehicles usually have airbags all around the cars.
Do you have to Google this info? If they give you the make and the VIN, and if it doesn't automatically populate, do you have to go and find out manually what the answer is to this?
I mean, that's not going to be this tab isn't something that's I want to say important, because yes, it is necessary to move past the quote, but it's not a detail that's going to either make or break the quote.
Okay.
Right.
You just put whatever almost.
Right. So like same thing with anti-lock brakes and daytime running lights, right? Per carrier, if you have daytime running lights, that gives you a better rating because the lights is automatically on, right? And anti-lock brakes, same thing, right? Once you scroll down to cost of new vehicle, this is usually an estimated value. Not every carrier asks for cost of new value. The only reason why a carrier would ask for cost of new value is if the vehicle is considered a high-end vehicle. So they would want to know exactly, how much it was purchased for, right? When you come down to anti-theft, this is a discount that usually affects the policy. It could either keep the premium the same or decrease the premium by, I want to say, maybe 0.5%. So usually cars usually have alarm only. If a customer does have a device like a low jack device or a device that tracks the vehicle, then you can put on that active tracking device. Usually I like to keep it standard and just keep it alarm only.
Yep.
Annual miles is based off the conversation that you're having with your customer, right? So like you're gonna ask them, hey, look, how often do you usually drive?
Yeah.
Areas like Liberty Mutual and Nationwide that will actually show what your average annual mileage is based off of if you use a small device in your car before, right? And that device is like a DriveWise or a Right Track is one of those devices that monitor how you drive. That information is shared between all carriers.
Okay.
Right. Current odometer isn't something that's really necessary. And performance is something that doesn't show up in any of the carriers that I've seen so far. If you come across an insured that does any kind of modification to any kind of vehicles or any of their vehicles, you have to add that value so that modification is properly insured, right? So let's say a customer puts 25-inch rims, right?
Yeah.
On his vehicle. If he crashes the car and that modification value isn't there, they're not going to pay him out the full amount of what he paid for it, right? So that's what take account for that. Going down the tabs, was the car a new vehicle?
So if there's modification, if you're going to ask your customer, have you done any modifications, right? If so, then you fill that out. If not, leave it empty.
Right.
New. Okay. I mean, all right. Let's say we get through. There's a lot of tabs, right? You got to get all this info. So realistically, not very few people are going to fill out everything automatically, right? Online. That's exactly that's the truth of it, right? So we really, but Goosehead, if I just share my screen just quickly, when Goosehead, apparently their comparative rate up, you can see here when they were presenting to me, they a quote request, right? So they said, okay, you fill this info out, home dwelling, home coverage, you fill all this info, and then it spits out home, Encompass, quote 1497, 1823. It's a very simple, and it looks like they, it just spits out 10, 20 different quotes, right? Or whatever. How accurate is that? Or is it really just an estimate? Because, unless they ask a million questions and you're happy to fill it out. What's your understanding?
So like based on did you put that that you have an auto and you have a home?
This is part of their presentation. I just did a screenshot. I can't remember what they request before they come up with the quote. But I'm just curious to see. Okay, I'm just kind of like back absorbing what you're saying. Like, okay, we have initial conversation. You asked me to send my Geico info. I did that, and then you had pretty much all you needed to input into this EZLYNX system. Once you fill out everything, then what does EZLYNX spit out? I'm trying to understand. Just use my example and as an example.
So for me, right, for you to understand how it works with EZLYNX, you have to understand the entire thing, right? So I would essentially have to break it down to you. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I would have to break it down to you line by line, tab by tab, so you see exactly how the process is.
Okay.
And exactly what we do after, right?
All right, I'll let you continue then.
So where do we leave off? Was the car new? That you don't answer because the carriers don't really access. They ask ownership type. And one big thing is going to be telematics, right? Yep. And telematics is a device you put into your vehicle and it gives you a discount just for having it.
Who pays for telematics? Is it I can go somewhere and buy a telematic device, or?
Oh, that's sent over by the insurance carrier, right? So like, we're living in a day and age where data is very, 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 very useful, because that's how, these companies are able
So
to
I can
dictate.
request that. I can request that. Let's say if I go Nationwide, I think you gave me a really good quote with Nationwide. I go to Nationwide and say, hey, send me your telematics, and then do I pay for a certain amount, but it reduces my premiums? How does that work?
So how it works is, the insurance carriers, they're always gonna want to offer it to you for free, right?
Okay.
Because data, they want everybody's data, because then they'll be able to know how to charge, their customers, right? They'll have a pool of information used. So the fact, if the insurance carriers are going to give you a discount just for having it, is all relative, right? But depending on how you drive, that gives you a bigger discount based on performance.
Okay.
So telematics is definitely something that I always offer, and I always put it at the front line. And if you decide not to take it, then I can take it off the policy, right? But that's something that should always be offered, and like, just always be told to the insured.
Okay.
Okay. When you
Yep.
go down, you have vehicle assignment, right? So that means which driver is driving which vehicles, right?
Good.
Now if we keep going, we have incidents, right? So this is the
Okay.
funky.
Talk about incidents, right? Like for example, let's say hypothetically, I scrape the side of the car on the rail, but I think it's not such a big deal. I don't want to make a claim. I don't want to even, I don't even bother fixing it. What is this? Is that considered an accident? It was without a claim, or you don't bother putting info? Like,
That's considered an accident is anytime you call in your insurance carrier,
okay.
and
You don't call in, you don't have to tell them.
the only way that accident can show up on your record, even if you don't call an insurance company, is if you file a police report.
Okay.
If you file a police report, that's going to show up on your record.
Okay. Got
it. So now, this page right here, this is the page that usually throws everything off, right? And the reason why I say that is because whenever you ask a customer, have you ever gone to an accident? They always lie. 80% your customer or insured is gonna lie about accidents, violations, anything, right? So me personally, as an experienced sales producer, I don't even ask this question anymore.
Yeah.
And then I let that information come back, and if it's clean, it's clean. If it's dirty, I already know how to go about the situation. I will ask about the accidents, and then move forward from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So you just don't bother putting anything there for now, because you don't ask them, because they're gonna lie most of the time, and it's a later stage process where you can find out whether they've had accidents, right, for free.
Okay, so now this page here, this is your coverage page, right? Bodily injury, uninsured motorist. If you want me to get into the details, I can.
Yeah, let's not get into it, because I won't get finished. We're only gonna half an hour or so. So I'm sure there's different intricacies on recommending more or less on this stuff. But let's say they give you whatever. Do you try to upsell them in most cases? Like, hey, you should probably get a little bit more body injury. If they're, there is a little bit of nuances there. If they're making more money, if they get more assets, you would encourage them to have a little bit more.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be that trusted advisor if I didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So let's move on, and okay. So you fill this out. Generally, try to get them to get probably. Most people are underinsured, right? The coverage is a little bit lower than perhaps they should have. So.
So for example, if you're a homeowner and you have 2550, I'm gonna tell you, Keon, hey, look, you own property, and you have this. I wouldn't feel comfortable writing this policy even if the price was good.
Yeah.
You take 100, 300, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
You recommend 100, 300 or whatever, right?
100, 300 or higher. At 25, 50, not writing this policy if you're a homeowner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So again, these are all of the coverage questions that you're gonna see in all of the carriers.
Now, all this nuances that you mentioned, is that covered in the licensing when I go through Exam FX, or is this something that you guys have recorded training? You know how you said you've got 20 hours of training. I'm assuming you've recorded really in-depth training about how EZLYNX works, but those nuances on how to hey, if you're a homeowner, you should definitely have a minimum 100, 300. Otherwise, it's, you know, you're not really protecting yourself. Is that included in the Exam FX training, or is it something that you guys train as part of your sales training, the upsell?
Okay. So in terms of coverages, if you're a licensed sales producer, you should have learned this already before you were licensed, right?
Okay, so this part of the training, they always recommend, they teach you basically, you know, how do you become the trusted advisor, right? You got to really understand if that person has a home and equity, then they should get probably a bit more bodily injury, blah, blah. Is that included in the exam of like getting licensed? Absolutely, because I lost your sound kind of cuts in and out. You said absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got
Absolutely.
it. Okay, got it. All right, let's move on. So state-specific coverage, credits, you fill out. There's a lot of info they ask for, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and this is how you're gonna see it on a quote. Literally, everything here shows up, right? And you have to know as that producer what to put, what to give, what not to give, right?
Because it can be overwhelming, right? Because this info is a lot.
Yeah, but it all comes with time, right? So when you see something new, you know, at first it could be overwhelming, but then once you start, you know, making it a habit, now you know how to.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not worried. Yeah, I'm saying in terms of when it spits out. Okay, let's have a look what they spit out at the end of all this.
So like for example, right before I even went to explaining the quote, I ran the quote under 5 minutes.
On the what? Sorry. So the audio sometimes cuts out. You said when you run the quote.
Yeah. So before I went into explaining the quote, I ran the quote from beginning to end under 5 minutes.
Under 5 minutes. Okay.
Under 5 minutes, and like, you know, as you know get more experience, that's how fast you can run these quotes, right? So, if you go to the carrier page, now they're gonna ask more in-depth carrier questions, right? Example: Mercury Insurance. Their single carrier question is how much people live in the house, right? And for me, it's just one, right? Nationwide, they're gonna come back to their billing. Do you want your monthly payments to come out through your checking and routing account? That's your EFT billing. If you say yes, then you save an additional $4 every month.
All this, you have to ask the customer this. It's something because to give them a proper.
So now with this comes back to selling style, right? So I rather get the best price, and I rather offer it and let them know, hey, look, it's best if you pay with a checking and routing account.
Okay, got it. So you select the best, and then you encourage the client. This quote is based on the fact that you have to have easy payment, this whatever, auto pay or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
And then you have more, like, you know, telematics. Did you agree to having that?
Yep. I need telematics. You know? Did you give me a quote with telematics? Because like I don't use telematics at the moment with Geico.
I'm not too sure.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that's fine. But generally, do you recommend all your clients get telematics to get a cheaper rate?
It depends who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to a kid that's 21 years old, I'm gonna tell him, if you take it now, you're gonna save 10% for the first 6 months, and then after that's gonna fall off, because I know how young kids drive. Okay. If I'm talking to somebody who's older and they have a clean driving history, I'm going to encourage him. Hey, look, try it now. You'll save 10%. And I don't see any reasons why, as long as you don't speed, you don't slam on your brakes, you don't, go through the motions, you have a possibility of saving more money in the future. Why would you not try to take advantage of that, So it's all about how
Is this covered in your sales training, or is it covered in the licensing?
Yes. So telematics is covered in the sales training.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of nuances, right? And then for every carrier, they've got slightly different questions, and depending on how you answer them, it's going to affect the quote. So
right.
This is where all your experience comes into play, especially if they're not used to dealing with so many different products, right? If they've just been Allstate, they just sell Allstate. That's all they know.
Right. So this is where we come in to actually, teach the agents how to go about it.
Yeah.
Right. And as long as they're sharp in terms of the questions they're asking originally, they'll know how to go through these quotes within 5 minutes.
It'd be good if you do cover, these are the nuances of the top 5 or 10 carriers that 80% of your businesses run through. And then
Yep. So I created videos for all of the carriers, and I speak about their appetite.
Okay.
Right. So I'll let them know exactly where you're gonna probably be able to write business with this carrier, what area you'll be able to write with Nationwide compared to Liberty Mutual, what they're looking for, if they have any kind of special underwriting requirements. That's all covered within those videos. So our agents know exactly who should go through.
And then who's on the pulse? Because I'm assuming every couple of years or a certain period, everyone changes their quoting. Sometimes the appetite, the loss ratios get screwed up. So is there intel, like who in the company is up to date with, okay, Nationwide's hot now for this particular type of customer versus, a year later, they're no longer, they've changed their policy. Who's up to date with that info?
So Brian usually gets that information first, right? Because he has relationships with the people who gave him access to these carriers, right? So they're gonna give him a heads up. Like for example, Nationwide, he received news yesterday that Nationwide is pulling back 80% of their business from New York, right? So then once he gets that information, every Monday when we have those clarity calls, we relay it to the agents so they have a heads up, and then we update our material.
Update the training and everything or whatever.
Right. And then we let everybody know, hey,
so this will actually happen? Nationwide are cutting back new business or what? 80?
Yeah. So Nationwide, they are cutting back 80% of new business in New York because the loss ratio is too high.
Okay. So this is a very recent thing, is it?
Very, very recent. This we got the call yesterday.
Wow.
So that's not something that's gonna affect anything, because right now in New York.
Hey, will that affect the quote you gave me? Is I'd be considered new business or what? I'm switching.
Yes, you would be considered new business. The only thing is you're upstate, right?
Okay.
And Nationwide, they're afraid of downstate.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Right.
Got it.
So
okay, cool. All right. So all this info, there's all these specific questions they're gonna ask for.
Right.
But I only see 3 or 4 carriers. Why it doesn't show
more? Because this is the auto quote, right? And these are our auto carriers at the moment, right? We have over 20 different carriers, but they're not all just auto carriers.
Okay, so which ones are the key auto carriers at the moment? Is 3 or 4?
Yeah, so Travelers, Nationwide, Mercury, and Liberty Mutual.
Travelers, you mentioned that? Nationwide.
Travelers, Nationwide, Mercury, Liberty Mutual.
That's the only auto carriers you have at the moment. Okay.
And by January, we will have Safeco, Stillwater, and there's a few more that I'm forgetting out, but as of right now, those are the 2 that I know that's coming out first quarter.
Okay. All right, got it. So then you're doing all this for auto, but let's say I've also got a house, and then how does that get factored into the mix? Is that
So
next stage?
so then we go back to our details page, right? And we go down to the bottom, and we hit go to home,
And you go
right?
to
And
fill
now
out this info.
we have 6 more carriers for homes,
Okay.
right? And then we just do the same thing again,
Okay.
right? So
Which
now
one do you have? Is you've got Kingston.
Kingstone, Nationwide, Stillwater, Plymouth Rock, Travelers, UPC. We also have Ocean Harbor. That's not here. That we have to get Tony to update. And the list goes on.
Okay. So with auto carriers, Liberty Mutual is not inside EZLYNX though. So then do you have to go and then fill out all that info into Liberty Mutual's portal?
Yes.
All right. So then is it spitting out auto carrier quotes with the 3 that you mentioned, Travelers, Nationwide, Mercury? And you're going to fill out the similar info for Liberty Mutual and then somehow see which one's best out of those 4 and then give the recommendation. So so do you also fill out the accidents bit here that doesn't cost anything, right? So that you fill that out. Where do you pull that report from the accidents?
Accidents doesn't cost anything, and we would order that from the reports, right?
Okay,
That's
you do a pull. The client doesn't need to tell you. So then, at what point do you have to pay the $8? I'm just trying to wrap my head. You've got 3 carriers plus Liberty for cars. Let's work on a car basis. You fill it all out, comes up with a quote. You said there was like a 1,700 for Travelers or a 2,000, and then as it jumps to 5,000. So you don't bother with a $5,000, right? You don't, it's like way out of it. So you just look at the 1,700, and then you might compare that with Liberty Mutual. And if they're much higher than the 1,700, then you just go back to Travelers and then you pull a direct report from them and pay the $8 to Travelers. Is that how you generally would do it?
exactly.
All right. So they're generally quite big gaps, unless they're very similar. Then you might have to pay 2 lots of $8. Is that right? If they're very similar.
So if the carriers are close, then I would go into each carrier and fine tune that quote.
Okay.
Add all, and then
Fine tune it. So you're willing to pay the $8?
No, not yet. Right. I'm gonna fine tune it, and then I'm gonna order the clue. The clue looks for accidents.
Okay.
Right. And the fact that I'm ordering the clue is free. Looking for accidents is free. Right. So now I'm gonna do that on both carriers, and accident comes up, I'm gonna see which carrier is rating that accident at a heavier price.
Okay. And then in most cases, is there a clear winner? There's like one clear winner, and then you only have to pull the report $8 off that one carrier, or is there sometimes there are 2 similar quotes within within 50 to $100, and then you really got to pay the $8 to get a more detailed result?
Yeah. So like that's usually that happens a lot, and
so like 50% of the time you might have to do 2 or 3 pull reports, and then the rest of it's just one report, but you got to pay $8.
All right. So the only time that you come across that situation is when those prices are very similar. I usually offer the customer both companies and ask them which one are you more comfortable with, and then I would tell them about back history and my.
For example, let's say there's 2 companies, and one is a Fortune 50 company, and one's a Fortune 500 company, right? So there's a chance that the smaller company might go out of business or whatever, right? Just from a stability point of view. Then you might be willing to pay an extra $50 a year, on the bigger company and the more reputable company, correct?
Is
So you are losing
that close. If the price is that close, my biggest thing is which company has the best history of paying out claims on time.
Okay, so where do you get that info?
It's all based off experience. But
isn't there like some online review? There's always social proof out there that says these guys are the best rated in terms of paying out claims. there's always companies of, or bloggers or whatever who gather that
Yeah,
info.
yeah, no, and that's true. Like, I've seen customers go through the Better Business Bureau to, like, look at different home companies, right? And everybody has different
This is the
experiences.
trusted advisor aspect, where you've done the homework for the clients, is even though they're paying, paying an extra $50, $100, but they get a much better payment of claims history. I mean, and there are literally portals where you put down your rankings and ratings based on your experience, and then they somehow, rate this as a better company in terms of claims. Is this something that you've just got a lot of years of experience, so you just know? But do you teach that in your sales training, or do you encourage us to go and do some research online as well, to guide client?
I do both, right? So I encourage agents to, like, do their due diligence on those carriers.
Yep.
Some of the time, so the agents that we're bringing on, they already have experience, and they know, these carriers already, so they know who to go with, who not to go with.
Okay, so
For
there should
certain
be some,
situations.
recommendation. That's why you want to hire a franchise, you want to hire a consultant, right? Because you
Right.
guys, I can't possibly have the time and knowledge to go through all 26 carriers, or all 5 or 6 even, right? I can't be bothered to figure out, who's got the better claim history, but hopefully you can.
But Keon, I'm not gonna see, that's tough, right? Because if you're buying a franchise, me personally, as somebody who was to spend $25,000-$30,000 on a franchise, I would want to know the ins and out of the business, right? Like for example, I also have a trucking company. When I first got into trucking, I knew nothing about trucking. Now I know the entire business like the
Okay.
back of my head, just
So
because, right?
okay, so now that's expected of the franchisee to learn that.
I encourage the franchisee to both, do their due diligence, but I also tell them the ins and out of the company, right?
Okay, so
Of the
you give your
carriers.
own trainings as well. Okay, got it. I get it.
Right. So it's a combination of both. I'm not gonna just, tell them,
Spoon
hey,
feed
look,
them.
this
You're
is
not
how you
just
go
gonna
about
spoon
it,
feed
or
them. Yeah. Okay.
you know.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. So we got the 3 to 6 carriers generally, and then if there's a bundle option, then there could be a really good rate if you just go nationwide, if you bundle and stuff, so on and so forth. All right, and then so you get to one point where it's like it's sometimes you just pull one report, pay the $8. Half the time you might do for two companies. Is that right? Was that fair to say?
Right.
Okay.
So, all right. So now a quick background about, our setup with the carriers compared to everybody else. Carriers always charge for their MVR fees, right? Right now, we're in a situation where some of our carriers aren't charging us for the MVR fees, right? And the reason why they're not charging us for the MVR fees is because we're producing business at a high clip. So they're willing to, like, not charge us those MVR fees as long as we keep up the production. So that's something that I want you to like, keep in the back of your head as well, in terms of, like, comparing how we run our quotes and, like, obtain business compared to, let's say, a Goosehead agent or a Quantum agent, right?
Well, they were encouraging their franchisees to charge a broker fee, right? So I guess I can't remember which one. It was either Brightway. I think Goosehead were pretty much encouraging most of their franchisees, because they to charge some $50, $100 to run a quote, because there's certain costs involved that they didn't mention it. But at the same time, you're spending a couple of hours on sometimes doing all this research for them, or run some quotes or whatever. Brian doesn't recommend charging. He says, we're a lot more competitive. But
it doesn't make sense. So
yeah. So that's another point of difference. And it doesn't, longer term. I mean, Goosehead will say, oh yeah, most clients have no problems paying for it. It's just like a loan officer, right? You normally pay a loan officer fee. So you generally don't recommend as a Clarity franchisee to charge a broker fee?
No, because and broker fees are the stigma that got attached to brokered agencies, because what would happen in the past is these brokers would charge extremely high broker fees
Okay.
for a situation that they could do somewhere else for free,
Okay.
right?
All right.
So
That's a good competitive advantage. Yep. So we should include that on the website, that we're running quotes that won't cost you anything. Yeah.
And look, I also want to show you one more thing. It was based on the conversation that we had yesterday in terms of EZLYNX comparative rater that they allow the consumer to use online.
Yeah. What does it look like?
I have it pulled up right here for you. So let's see if this is it. Perfect. All right. So this is how it looks like. This is exactly how it looks like, and it looks outdated. Like it's the same, you know, comparison that I made yesterday, comparing Internet Explorer to like Google Chrome, right? So if I was to run a quote on myself.
Oh, I see. So this is what's available to the end consumer, but you generally don't want to give them this because it just looks really ugly.
Right. You know, so it's
and then even when they fill it out, it's just a rough estimate, right?
So there's no estimate at all. It just says, hey, somebody from Clarity will give you a call.
Oh, so when you fill this out, just show me what is shown at the back end, if you could, please.
So let's say auto. Oh, try this again.
So if it doesn't even give you a number, a monthly figure, then it's not really a comparative. It's not even really functional for the end consumer, right?
Yes. So like basically what it does is it basically just sends over their information to us.
And that's it.
That's it.
Okay, so it's not really functional.
Right. So
it doesn't.
It's not something I would
Whereas
recommend.
Goosehead at least has the perception of being functional.
Right. Exactly.
So they do spit out some figure and they give you a list of 10 companies or whatever. But that's the thing, right? That at the moment Goosehead are strong because, you know, they've got 70 carriers, right? And they do have a comparative rater that somehow pulls the data and gives you at least 10 figures. So perception wise, they look like they've got a more sophisticated AI software system that gives you figures. If you're willing to fill out the info.
See, the thing is, but like, so like with Goosehead, and that's something that I can really commend them on, even though their perception that it does gives back a number, at least it does, right? And the fact that the consumer could see that actual number is perfect. So now, you know, they're more likely to have a conversation with the agent.
Exactly.
And now, you know, there's something.
This is how we need to counter it. This is my understanding to educate the client. The way I would counter this is, in reality, filling out these comparative raters only gives you a rough picture, because ultimately we're going to need, I don't know how you can combat it. I mean, theoretically, it says, well, if I ask you all the questions and you know, or we could say each carrier has slightly different nuances. That's how I would position it. From what you've told me, every carrier is slightly different. They just need slightly different information, which is why we need to really jump on a call with you and to see what your preferences are and your needs are.
Right. So one thing that I could definitely recommend, we don't need every single specific information, right? If we really want to get like a number and make it very generalized, if we have the insured's name, address, date of birth, and year, make, and model, I think that would be more than enough.
To actually, if we can get the APIs connected, if we get like whatever you just told me, that the 10 pieces of information, we can still get a rough number from the carrier.
Right.
All right. So that at the moment is not available in EZLYNX, but eventually if we pay a full stack team to do it for us, they could probably make it work.
Right. So that's a conversation that I was having with you yesterday in terms of I have a few college buddy of mine who owes me, a few favors. So what I was planning on doing was I was planning on building out a system that integrated with EZLYNX. So whenever they entered that information in, it would connect directly into EZLYNX. And then whatever EZLYNX pulls, we can reroute it back to that landing page or that final.
So basically, we need to create a system where we gather a little bit more info, and then it sends it through the API to all the different insurance carriers. Then it spits out an actual number.
Right.
So, yeah. So, I guess we could, what you guys could do is just say, hey, have a meeting with Anthony's team on Tuesday to say, hey, what would it cost to do that, right? A rough estimate. And then your buddies could give you their buddy rate. And then ultimately you need to decide who do you want to trust and go with, if you want to, if it's like a huge disparity in pricing, you might go with a cheaper option initially. If it screws up, then you can always,
No. I mean, it's not even about, going through somebody I know or not. Is me personally, I just want somebody who can get the job done the right way.
Yeah.
Right. So like if your team is, built for this kind of project, then I'm going to pick your team over,
Sure. I mean, this tech team, by the way, they're going to be very transparent. They'll charge Brian, they'll give you a quote directly. I don't put a margin on it, right? So certain things like this website that I built, that's my company, right? So certain things I'm going to need, Anthony's team to handle, and they're top notch, right? So I don't want, my team I know the limitations of my team. They can put a WordPress site together and, funnel together and stuff. It's not a problem. But if we really want to optimize it, do fancy backend stuff, Anthony's team is, if we want to build a company that will actually create leads for franchisees, Anthony's team can do that down the track, et cetera, et cetera. If we want to run ads, at a high level, if we want to buy databases and then do campaigns properly, then Anthony's team will handle it. So they for now, there's certain development work that they'll give a discounted rate, and then moving forward, once we get into start recruiting and we're getting paid a certain amount on the upfront franchise fee as well as the residuals, that's where Anthony cut down his rates and just go and partner with me and go on a performance basis. But anyway, so great. So really appreciate you going through all that, because I've got a much better picture now of how it works and the API. Yeah, so I guess on Tuesday, just kind of write down, I think we need this info, right? These are the 10 fields or the 15 fields that we need, and then we need to pull that info from the API and then do this. I need you to kind of just explain. I don't need you to go through what you went through with me just then, right? You just basically, my understanding is I have a rough understanding of how the sales process works, what information, but there's two options. I need to know, okay, phase one, you just need this info to follow up with a client. I think it's something like what Goosehead had, right? Like the first name, last name, email, phone number, city, address, who referred you, comments, right? Just a nice little bit of info. We don't want too little. We want a nice combo. And then phase two is, okay, Anthony, hey, give us a quote on what it will take to churn out a proper comparative rater. That will at least give a rough number, and then the rough number then becomes footnote. This is just an initial estimate. Obviously, give us a call to find, we need to gather a little bit more information perhaps and fine tune these rates, right? But at least it gives them a sense of, hey, can you at least save me, roughly 10 to 20%, right? It looks like, it can, then, obviously it's not, we don't want to do a bait and switch, but, at least get a rough figure, which is within plus or minus 5% or 10% or something.
Right. And even with those actual quotes, you can't bind it online. You would have to speak to an agent.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think this has been helpful because I'm gonna position, our 3-step process and explain somehow in the verbiage. There are a lot of comparative raters out there, but often they're not that accurate until you sit down and have a chat with the franchise consultant, etc. I'll figure out some wording and run it by you guys so that that's how we, people are going to go, I can go to Goosehead, right, and just get a rough figure as well. It's never going to be that accurate because of these XYZ. It gives you a rough estimate.
Right.
You don't want to bag them too much because, but it's still ultimately you need to sit down with a consultant, and who, as understands the history of those carriers versus and all the little nuances. That's where the trusted, you can't at this stage, completely get rid of the advisor, right? If there was software that was like, hey, it rates every aspect of the carrier from their claims to the ability to, you know what I'm saying? It's like that sophisticated. Then
that's tough. That's something that people are working on, and there's guys that's like trying to do that, but it never works out for companies.
So these comparative softwares are not super sophisticated at this stage.
Right. So in terms of those telematics, right, and that's where telematics become huge because now they get that information and now they can program it where it's all API based.
Got it. Okay, then this is good. So in reality, insurance is complex. How they come up with a quote, there's like many different factors, and sometimes it's best that you get on a call with us first to go through the nuances. But initially, we can give us some basic info so we can get started.
Okay.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Keon. And Keon, when you get a chance, can you send me over the link of the website that you made? I want to take a look at it one more time.
Yeah, and I'm going to send you the recording. I recorded a little demo, and then you can take a look at it.
Beautiful. All right, Keon. Thanks,
guys. Take care. Thanks, Danny. Bye.